The rescue. The night Daniel Cross found her was one of those evenings where the world felt ordinary, unremarkable, so much so that it seemed fate was preparing to rip it all apart. He had stayed late at the garage, working overtime because bills never stopped piling up. By the time he clocked out, the town was already asleep. A thin fog rolled through the quiet streets, clinging to his boots as he walked the mile home. Daniel had never been the type to expect excitement. His life was the definition of routine. Fixing engines, eating reheated leftovers, watching the same television reruns. That was why the strange glow in the treeline caught his eye. It wasn't headlights, not firelight either. It pulsed faintly, alive in a way light shouldn't be. He stopped on the cracked pavement, staring into the woods. Logic said to keep walking. Curiosity, however, was louder. He stepped off the road and pushed through the brush. The smell of smoke and metal hit him first, acrid and sharp. The deeper he went, the brighter the glow became until he stumbled into a small clearing. That's when he saw it. The object was no bigger than a car, though its shape was unlike anything built on Earth. Twisted metal plating, scorched black, curved in ways that made his eyes struggle to follow. Sparks danced along shattered panels, and a faint hum throbbed in the air, vibrating through the soles of his boots. For a heartbeat, Daniel thought it was some kind of experimental drone, maybe military. But then he heard it, the weak, broken whimper of a child. His breath caught. He rushed forward, stepping over shattered fragments until he found her. She was lying half-buried under a piece of bent plating, struggling to free herself. Daniel dropped to his knees, shoving the hot metal aside with his bare hands, hissing as it seared his skin. When he lifted it away, he froze. The child was not human. Her skin was pale green, almost translucent, with veins glowing faintly beneath the surface like threads of silver light. Her limbs were too delicate, almost bird-like, and her eyes, God, her eyes, were enormous, golden, and filled with tears. Despite everything alien about her, Daniel's heart knew exactly what he was seeing, a terrified little girl. She coughed weakly, curling against herself as if expecting harm. "It's okay. It's okay," Daniel whispered, his voice shaking. He stripped off his jacket and wrapped it around her tiny frame. "I've got you. You're safe now." Her hand, small and trembling, clutched at his sleeve. She didn't speak his language, but the look she gave him, pleading, desperate, was universal. Daniel lifted her carefully. She weighed almost nothing, fragile as glass. Every step back through the woods felt surreal, like he was moving in a dream. Somewhere behind him, the wreck hissed louder, sparks showering upward before collapsing into silence. By the time he reached his house, sweat soaked through his shirt. He set her down on the couch, pulled blankets from the hall closet, and fetched water. She drank clumsily, eyes never leaving his face, as though studying him. Only when she finally drifted into sleep, curled beneath the blanket, did the reality hit him. He had just brought an alien child into his living room. Daniel sat back in his chair, staring at her small form, his mind racing. Questions slammed into him one after another. Who was she? Where had she come from? Were others coming? What if the government found out? But beneath all the noise in his head, one thought anchored itself, stubborn and immovable. She needed him. And somehow, without even knowing her name, Daniel knew he wasn't going to let anyone take her away. Whispers in the dark. The girl awoke just before dawn. Daniel had dozed off in the recliner, an empty mug of coffee cooling on the side table. The sound that stirred him wasn't a cry but something softer. A low hum, melodic, almost like a lullaby. He blinked awake and saw her sitting upright on the couch, blanket pulled around her shoulders. The girl's golden eyes glowed faintly in the half-light, reflecting the rising sun through the window. Her small hands were clasped together, and between them shimmered a faint ripple of silver-blue light, flickering like water disturbed by wind. Daniel's breath caught. She noticed him watching. The glow vanished instantly, and she scrambled backward against the couch cushions, fear etched into every line of her face. No, it's okay," Daniel said quickly, raising his hands. "I won't hurt you." Her chest heaved, eyes darting toward the door, the windows, every possible escape. He could practically feel the survival instinct thrumming inside her. Daniel softened his voice, sliding slowly off the recliner to kneel at her eye level. You're safe here. Do you understand? Safe. He tapped his chest, then pointed at her. Me safe. You. For a moment she just stared at him, lips trembling. Then she repeated his gesture, hesitant, unsure. She touched her chest and whispered a sound, her voice thin but clear. Lyra. Daniel blinked. Lyra? That's your name. Her head tilted. A small nod. He smiled despite the whirlwind inside his head. Lyra. Okay. I'm Daniel. He tapped his chest. Daniel. She repeated it awkwardly, the end sound catching in her throat, but the effort warmed him. A fragile bridge had been built, however shaky. For the next hour, they exchanged clumsy gestures. She pointed at objects, the cup, the lamp, his shirt, and made soft sounds. He repeated them back, or supplied the English word. It was slow, halting, but progress. By the time the sun rose fully, she had curled against the couch again, exhaustion pulling her under. Daniel sat back, rubbing a hand over his face. He should have called someone, the authorities, the military, someone. But the thought of men in suits taking her away, poking and prodding her like some lab specimen, made his stomach twist. No. Not happening. He rose and pulled out his old laptop, digging through dusty boxes in the closet for the emergency cell booster and a police scanner he hadn't touched in years. If there had been a crash like the one he saw, surely someone would have reported it. Sure enough, static-filled chatter filled the room when he tuned in. Words like unidentified object, containment perimeter, and possible hazardous materials crackled through the speaker. His blood ran cold. They were already looking. And they'd be coming closer soon. That night, while Lyra slept, Daniel sat in the dark kitchen with the scanner hissing softly beside him. Every sound outside, the creak of a tree branch, the rumble of a distant truck, made him tense. He didn't know what scared him more, the possibility of alien pursuers, or his own government. Then, as the clock neared midnight, Lyra woke screaming. He rushed to her, finding her tangled in blankets, eyes wide with terror. Her hands glowed again, brighter this time, flickers of light racing across her skin. He grabbed her shoulders gently. Hey, it's okay. It's just a nightmare, you're safe. Her gaze locked on his, wild and desperate. And then, for the first time, words tumbled from her lips in broken English. They come. Daniel froze. Before he could ask who, a sound outside shattered the silence. 3 deliberate knocks on his front door. The knock at midnight. The 3 knocks echoed through Daniel's small cabin like gunshots. He froze, every muscle locked. Lyra clutched his shirt, trembling, her small fingers glowing faintly as though her fear had seeped into light itself. For one long second, Daniel considered ignoring the sound. Pretend he wasn't home. Pretend this wasn't happening. But the steady rhythm of those knocks, deliberate, patient, certain, told him whoever stood outside already knew. He whispered to Lyra, "Stay here." But her eyes widened with terror, and she shook her head violently, refusing to let go. The knock came again. 3 sharp raps. Daniel swallowed hard, grabbing the old hunting rifle from above the fireplace. The wood felt rough and familiar in his hands, though he knew against whoever, or whatever, was out there, it might as well have been a stick. He crept to the door, pressed his back against the wall, and called out. "Who's there?" Silence. Then, a voice. Smooth, calm, and strangely melodic, though not quite human. Daniel Carter. His breath caught. They knew his name. He glanced back at Lyra. She was rigid with fear, whispering in her strange tongue over and over. He didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear enough. Don't open it. Daniel tightened his grip on the rifle, heart hammering. What do you want? Another silence, then. We are not here to harm you. Open the door. Please. There was something unsettling in the way the voice lingered on please, as if unused to the word. Against every instinct screaming inside him, Daniel edged toward the window, careful not to creak the floorboards. He pulled the curtain back an inch. 2 figures stood in the pale wash of moonlight. Tall. Striking. Their silhouettes were unmistakably humanoid, but their features shimmered faintly, as if reality bent at the edges of their forms. One wore a dark cloak that seemed to drink the light around it. The other's skin caught the moonlight like polished metal, eyes glowing faintly amber. Alien. No doubt. Daniel's breath hitched, but before he could move, the cloaked one turned, directly toward the window. Their eyes met. Not human eyes. Too deep, too sharp, holding an intensity that pinned him in place. Slowly, the figure raised a hand, palm outward, in a gesture Daniel recognized. Not a threat. A greeting. Behind him, Lyra whimpered. The metal-skinned one stepped forward and spoke again, this time louder. The child belongs with us. We will take her now. Daniel's gut twisted. Belongs with us. He glanced back at Lyra. She shook her head furiously, clutching the blanket like it was armor. Her golden eyes burned with desperate refusal. The cloaked figure added, softer, almost regretful, "You are not meant to be part of this, human. Step aside, and no harm will come to you." Daniel felt his blood surge hot with something primal. Fear, yes. But also defiance. These strangers, these aliens, thought they could just waltz into his home and take her? His voice was low, steady, surprising even himself. She stays here. For the first time, silence stretched between them. The two figures exchanged a glance, subtle but loaded with meaning. Then the metal-skinned one sighed, a sound like wind cutting across glass. Then you have chosen. And with that, the lantern outside flickered and died, plunging the cabin into darkness. The choice of a human. The darkness pressed in like a living thing. Daniel's cabin had never felt so small, so fragile, as if the night itself had sealed him in. Lyra's faint glow lit the room in trembling pulses. Her golden eyes were wide, shimmering with fear and something else, trust. Trust in him. The door creaked. Slowly, painfully, as though some invisible hand was prying it open without a touch. Daniel snapped his rifle up, sweat dripping from his temple. "Stay back," he barked into the dark. The cloaked one's voice floated inside, calm and unshaken. "You cannot stop us, human. Your weapon is nothing here." The metal-skinned figure stepped across the threshold without a sound. In the shimmer of Lyra's glow, Daniel saw their face clearly, sharp lines, too perfect to be human, but eyes weighed down by centuries. "Why her?" Daniel demanded, his voice raw. "Why does she matter so much?" Lyra whimpered, shaking her head, but the cloaked one answered anyway. "She is not a child. Not as you understand. She is heir. Her kind do not die as yours do. They pass their essence, power, knowledge, into the next vessel. She carries the last of a line older than your son." Daniel's stomach dropped. He looked at Lyra, so small, clutching the blanket like any frightened little girl, and couldn't reconcile it. "She's a kid," he snapped. "I don't care what destiny you've written on her, she's just a kid." The cloaked one's eyes narrowed. "You do not understand. Without her, our people fracture. Wars will consume the stars. She is hope. She is necessary." Daniel hesitated. His hands trembled on the rifle. This wasn't just about him anymore. It wasn't even just about Lyra. They were talking about the fate of worlds. But then he felt her tiny hand slip into his. Warm. Fragile. Human, somehow. "No," she whispered, voice trembling but clear. "I don't want to go. I want to stay here." Something broke inside Daniel. All the fear, the doubt, the instinct to surrender, it burned away, leaving behind only one iron truth. He planted his feet. "Then she stays. With me." The metal-skinned figure's face darkened, shifting like storm clouds. "Then you condemn billions." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Maybe. Or maybe you're just scared of what happens if she gets to choose for herself." The room vibrated, the air thick with unseen pressure. Lyra gasped, her glow flaring so bright it painted the cabin walls gold. For the first time, the two visitors faltered, shielding their eyes. Her small voice rose, trembling but fierce, "Leave. Or I make you." And with that, the pressure snapped. A wave of light burst from her tiny frame, slamming outward like a thunderclap. The lanterns outside reignited. The cabin shuddered but held. When Daniel's eyes cleared, the two figures were gone, vanished into the night. Only the faint echo of their voices lingered, carried on the wind. This is not finished. Daniel lowered the rifle slowly, his hands shaking now that the danger had passed. He dropped to one knee, looking at Lyra. She was pale, exhausted, but still clutching his hand. "You did good, kid," he whispered, his throat tight. Her golden eyes blinked up at him. "You stayed." "Yeah," he said, pulling her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. "And I'm not going anywhere." Outside, the stars burned cold and endless. Somewhere out there, two alien women carried word of what had happened. Armies might come. Wars might start. But Daniel didn't care. Tonight, he had made his choice. One man. One girl. Against the galaxy. And for the first time, humanity's story had truly begun.